It's my life. Lazy. It's my life. I got dirty.
Welcome back to Collect Them All or Die Trying, the spoiler room, comic cliff notes. And before we get into it, I always like to give a shout out to Frank at Coffee and a Comic. Go to Coffee and a Comic right now and get all the David Mack packs you can. And you can use my special discount coupon code, Collect Them All, to get 10% off your order. Go and check it out now. And now we jump back into Something's Killing the Children, The Angels of Archer's Peak, Part 3. And this issue is swinging for the fences, hard. The issue starts off with a little girl who seems to be hiding in a closet, and she is scared for her life. Like she just seen the ring bitch coming out of the TV. Yeah, that was the scariest thing I could think of at the moment, because that bitch had me watching TV in a whole new way. And this little girl is putting in extra overtime, trying to convince herself that monsters don't exist, because all she keeps doing is repeating to herself, I don't believe in monsters. I don't believe in monsters. I don't believe in monsters. Like, the more you say it, maybe it'll come true. And as we move forward, I could only imagine what this girl has witnessed, because she's full of blood and she's crying her eyes off, sitting in this closet, repeating the same line over and over. I don't believe in monsters. Then things turn from bad to worse when the closet door creaks open. And at this point, I'm like, girl, stop talking. Don't breathe. As this creature sniffs around for a bloody bone like a rabid dog. And it's pretty apparent that this girl has no clue on how to play hide and seek, because she screams off the top of her lungs and makes a dash out the closet past her bed, past two more bodies, one on top of the bed and one under the bed. And it also looks like she runs past a Ouija board. And after witnessing the current events taking place, I could see she either didn't close the board right, read the instructions, or the warning label on the box. And as she makes it out the room and down the hall with this creature in pursuit, she slips and falls on all the scattered blood all over the place and ends up breaking her wrist. Severely at that, because you can see the bone coming out and protruding from her skin. And at this point, it looks like the girl is giving up, because she's sitting there holding her wrist as the monster gets closer and closer and closer as she makes her last plea of please, and the house goes quiet. Then we move over to Johnny V's bar, where we meet Henry, who, like Tommy's mom in issue 2, is dealing with the loss of a child. Only Henry's way of coping is the bottom of every bottle he could get his hands on. And as Henry is reminiscing about old times, the bartender clearly sees he had too much to drink and cuts him off and suggests Henry get a cab and go home. But in the same bar is Tommy and his mate, Tam, who works at the restaurant, Applebeans. And they're going over the events that took place in their restaurant earlier that day. And Tommy's giving a description of what the butcher of Bakersfield looks like. And it's clearly not a good one. But Tommy's also saying that he's called the sheriff and that they picked her up. But he's adamant on telling his friends that he doesn't trust no one, not even the sheriff. And one of his friends asks him, what are you going to do if they let her go? And Tommy's response is, what I have to. And we finally get it. 3 issues in, and we finally get a name to the character as the sheriff studies the driver's license of Erica Slaughter. And the sheriff is convinced that this is a fake because it looks like she printed it out in Kinko's. And dude, you didn't even laminate it. And the sheriff, he's in no mood. And who could blame him with all these missing and dead children popping up? And his town, his nice quiet little town, is in disarray. And Erica Slaughter has made it clear that this isn't her first rodeo. And up until this point, she's been very cooperative with the sheriff, telling him and answering all his questions on her whereabouts and where she's been and dates. And Erica is well aware that this is gonna freak the sheriff out, knowing that she's been in all these different places and towns, just like the sheriffs, where they have missing children. Which most likely the sheriff's gonna wanna lock her up and throw away the key even more, regardless of the fact that he saw her getting off the bus back in issue 2, which clearly negates her from being a suspect in the missing and dead children. Which she tells the sheriff, you know I wasn't here when things went bad, but you still wanna lock me up because it will make you feel like you're doing something. Does that sum it up? And the sheriff gives her that nasty side eye, like, Sure, whatever, smartass. The conversation continues as the tables turn because now Erica Slaughter's doing the investigating, with her first question to the sheriff being, who went missing first? And the sheriff's like, wait, hold up. You're the one that's locked up here. And she's like, yeah, sure. So who went missing first? Erica goes on to explain that there were probably a few cases of disappearances that he wrote off before there were even bodies, before he even knew that there was something out there killing the children. And there are missing children out there that he just wants to keep off the radar because he doesn't want to be listed as incompetent and not knowing what's going on to the public. Because the sheriff has been holding off, hoping that all this is just some normal, mundane way that kids go missing, like an angry relative or a runaway or something regular. But deep down inside, the sheriff knows that these kids aren't missing. They're dead. And now the sheriff flips out, proving Erica's point. And I honestly think he's been holding this in ever since Erica got to town, because he tells her, stop treating this like it's a game. This isn't just any other town. Stuff like this doesn't happen here. This isn't Milwaukee or Madison or even Green Bay. These children are dead. And this right here was the confession Erica was waiting for from the sheriff. And Erica goes on to tell the sheriff, this is why I'm here. And then she turns into Obi-Wan, because now she starts telling him exactly what's going to happen and how things are going to go down. Because she tells him, you're going to get a call. Soon after you get this call, you're going to let me go. And a little bit later after that, the problem's going to go away. And you're never going to really know what happened or why. And that's going to drive you off the chain. But at least the kids will stop dying. That's going to happen sooner if you just tell me who was the first kid that disappeared. Then they get interrupted by the same detective from issue 1 that was questioning James. And he's like, Houston, we have a problem. And the sheriff's like, what is it? Is it about her? He's like, no, we have 5 more. There are 5 more dead bodies. It's like, when? Like, just now. Like, they're literally probably still getting stabbed. Nah, I'm just joking. But yeah. Then the sheriff tells the detective to throw Erica in the drunk tank. Now, with the new info that just got to the sheriff and 5 more bodies popping up, it's clear that the sheriff is way in over his head. And before Erica could be dragged off to the drunk tank, she tells the sheriff, I know how scared you are. I know what it's like to feel responsible for each and every one that you think you could have stopped. And the sheriff's like, can you stop this? And she's like, yeah, I can. He's like, why? Why can you stop this? And Erica apologizes because she can't give him an answer that would make him feel any better. And she's not trying to be difficult. And at this point, the sheriff's hands is tied because he says, let her go and don't leave town. But Erica's adamant, telling him, I'm not going anywhere until this is over. But before Erica could leave, the sheriff gives her the missing information that she needs. And he tells her there was a girl, Sarah Washington. They thought her uncle must have picked her up, but there wasn't any sign. And this was a month and a half ago. And the sheriff wants to know what he has to do when he gets that phone call Erica was telling him about to let her go. And she tells him, you should tell him he's an asshole and that he should have called sooner. Because of him, 5 more kids are dead. And like I said before, she's really pissed off with the person that keeps calling her on this phone because she clearly has animosity towards this person for whatever reasons. At this point, the sheriff decides to put a tail on Erica and asks John, the other detective, to keep a close eye on her. Nothing too obvious. He just wants to know what she's up to. And he's got a bad feeling that he can't shake, that all of this is going to get much worse before it gets any better. And as Erica leaves the building, she's met by James, who's been waiting outside the precinct ever since he heard that she was picked up by the sheriff. And Erica's quick to question him. James, why aren't you in school? Now, James just goes on to explain on how school is just pointless because everybody's just so sympathetic towards his situation that it's not like they're going to fail him anyway. And everyone else thinks he killed his friends. And besides, he feels like what Erica's doing is far more important. And Erica is not really listening to what James has to say because she's entangled in a conversation with Octo. And Octo's telling Erica that the kill patterns is now more consistent with a Class B obscura type than a Class A. But Erica doesn't want to listen to what Octo has to say right now in this moment in time. And James is like, you talking to the octopus? You look angry. You should try talking to human people and not stuffed animals. And Erica takes this into offense because she tells James to shut the front door, and not necessarily in those words. But James apologizes. But Erica apologizes back because she knows her actions were way out of line. And she knows that James been through a lot, and he's lost a lot of friends, and he's scared out of his mind. And that's all okay. And it's not fair for Erica to put all this on James. And Erica proceeds to tell James that there are more kids out there dying. It's getting stronger and less afraid of making a mess, and that from here on out, it's only gonna get dangerous. And it's been a while since she's been up against something this big. And Erica's suggestion is we need to get this over and done with quick. And James asks, what can we do? We're gonna need weapons. Lots of weapons. And that concludes Something's Killing the Children, The Angel of Archer's Peak Part 3. And don't forget to slide up in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe so you can get more videos just like this. See you next time. Peace.
It's my life.